Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Javier with The Real Javier Novoa, a channel, a platform, and a modality where we apply the principles of philosophy, mysticism, spirituality, and business to rapid lifestyle transformation. Always coming to you, ladies and gentlemen, from The Real Javier Novoa studio here in Dallas, Texas, with new insights, new inspirations as I develop my application of this material. And as you journey with me on this path together, we're going to create this synergistic growth that never stops developing. This is not like a dogma or a doctrine where we just have a teaching and then it stays stagnant and you just have to follow that for all time. Because as we know, living in a vibrational universe, the bylaw, the key is expansion. And we're continuously expanding our knowledge. We can talk about the same thing in so many different ways because as we know, as advanced practitioners in manifestation, there is no other thing. There's only one thing. Why? It's simple, because there's no duality. So we're always going to be talking about the same thing, whether it's rapid lifestyle transformation, whether it's athletics, whether it's survival, whether it's business, whether it's relationships. We're talking about the same thing, and you are the consciousness. Indeed, you are the space in which all of it happens. I just want to invite you quickly, if you've not already, please hit the subscribe button. I know that before I started putting material out, even channels that I loved and watched and followed for years, I didn't subscribe to them because the idea never crossed my mind. But now, as a content creator, knowing how the number of subscribers boosts our views, boosts our ability to get our message out to more people, and also allows you the convenience of getting alerts of our videos, I now know how important it is, and I always subscribe to channels I watch for that. So please help us out. Help yourself out by being able to follow the development of this material by hitting the subscribe button. I'll give you a second to do it. Thank you so much for doing that. So, what we want to talk about today on the avenue of manifestation, because we're about to go back into the details and the nitty-gritty. We went a little bit general yesterday, and of course we had fun on the trip and so on and so forth, but we're about to get back into the hands and the clay. And I want to give you just a thought or a concept or a tool that even if you've been studying this material for many years, is going to help all of this material come together for you in, I believe, a new way. And it's actually based upon an insight from the great economist, the great French economist named BASTIAT. Of course, BASTIAT wrote about the broken window fallacy. He wrote a great book called The Law. I believe Frédéric Bastiat, a great economist. If you don't know him, look him up. One of the main themes in his economic works, and of course economics is all about human action and human thought, because action is an offshoot of thought. He talked about the fact that if you simply look at the surface phenomena, and you look at what's happening on the outer, and then you try to draw connections from that surface or materialistic viewpoint, you're going to miss a lot. Because he said all of the sciences of human action and human interaction are about finding that piece of the unseen. And what he said, in not so many words, we're paraphrasing here, but that the unseen always drives the seen. So in order to be a good economist, in order to be a good psychologist, a good student of human behavior, you always have to look for the unseen forces which drive the seen. And this dovetails and connects very beautifully with the science of rapid lifestyle transformation, reality creation in general, and manifestation. Because if you're looking at the results on the outer, those are always changing, Not only because of the vibration that you're giving out is changing, not only because sometimes we dip. In fact, if you're actually playing a big enough game, you're going to be dipping at least 3 or 4 times a day in a significant way, and that's good because it signifies expansion. Not only because of that, but because of the fact that as nuclear physics, or as quantum physics rather, proves, is that the only thing that you can see at any given time is about 0.000000000000000001% of what's actually going on. Not only on a cosmic scale, let's even put to the side the aspects of great masses or great bodies like planets and the universe and so on and so forth, and also putting aside the microscopic and the very tiny particles, which have already been shown to follow completely different laws, if you could even call it laws. But putting all that aside, just in your practical daily experience, ladies and gentlemen, as we've said many times, the only thing I can see and sense right now is exactly what's in front of my face. What does that mean? That means, for example, you could be sitting in a shack in, let's say, the woods, a very cheap shack that would appear to be the trappings of poverty. And yet, a billionaire could be sitting there. He could be on vacation or just on a retreat to that shack. Or a poor person could be there. There's absolutely no difference in the physical circumstances at all. What is the only difference between a billionaire sitting in a shack and a poor man sitting in the shack? The only difference is the unseen. And it's a very interesting concept because we call what I referred to in our early videos when we detailed that chart of the levels of being, with basically divinity at the top and physicality at the bottom, basically which is based on the Platonic notion, if you read Timaeus, of spirituality and physicality. What we talk about there is that there's a category actually below personality and below individuality called context. And what that category of context is not only your physical surroundings, because we haven't even gotten to the physical yet. It is your concept of your physical surroundings. And that is above all physicality. I hope you follow me a little bit here. What that means is your concept of what surrounds you, your sense or your feeling of what surrounds you, is so much more important and so much more impactful than what physically surrounds you. In fact, what physically surrounds you doesn't mean very much because it's in the moment. Again, another example that we use, because I'm really trying to drive this home, especially to people who are starting out on this path and want to really accelerate in their law of attraction, law of assumption journey. Because what happens to a lot of people in law of assumption and law of attraction is they come in and they learn that thoughts create reality, which is true. But they try to approach it from a direct standpoint, and they try to directly affect matter immediately by their thoughts. Now, there's no question that the deeper and the greater focus that you attain, and the better that you get at this methodology, you will be able to manipulate physical reality from a thought immediately. Just if you read about Yogananda, Paramahansa Yogananda, and these people who could bilocate, and you just read the biographies of these great yogis who could levitate, or this yogi in Tibet who could actually put his hand through a wall. This is where we're all getting. Like the great Boris Berezovsky said in his great work, How to Earn a Fortune, he said that I have seen yogis that could levitate. Of course, I may never attain that, but when there are great championships or World Cups, there are also backyard tournaments. Well, you and I are starting out in backyard tournaments, so we can certainly do. But we're all heading towards that way where we can directly affect matter. But the only way you do that is by focusing on it indirectly. Let me sort of explain this to you in the simple ways I can. If you try to make, let's say, $5,000, and you try to say, I'm going to make this happen today. Well, you could try to steal it, you could try to rob a bank, and so on and so forth, and you might gain it for a very little while, but it's going to be very short, and there's going to be a lot of probabilities. However, if you follow the techniques and the processes that we give on this channel, if you go at it indirectly, if you say, you know what, I know that I already have that $5,000. I'm in the state of that $5,000 and I sense it, and I don't care what happens on the physical. Then you go about your life and you allow the universe to open doors to that. You will start seeing signs of that in the physical, but the irony is you cannot make it happen on the physical. The whole point of this is, I want to drive home to you the concept that the unseen drives the seen. And this is not very metaphysical. This is not mystical. This is workaday stuff, ladies and gentlemen. You've all had the experience of trying to convince your boss of something. You can go and try to argue your point to your boss, and it's not going to be successful. But you can say, okay, I'm going to go about this in an indirect way. I'm going to catch him in a good mood. I'm going to use the vibrational openings. I'm going to use my intuition. And we're going to make it seem as if he came up with the idea himself. And a lot of times that's how you get your idea across to people like that. This is everyday stuff. There's nothing special or groundbreaking in what I'm teaching here. What is going to be special and groundbreaking is your new understanding of it and your new application of it. In fact, I want you to go into the weekend, and we're going to go into next week, contemplating on this fact that the unseen is the driver of the seen. Therefore, you need to put most of your focus, if not 100% of your focus, especially in the beginning, on the unseen. That means you don't even need to check the seen to see if what you're trying to manifest is happening. The promise is it's already fully manifested in the unseen. This is in the Quran, this is in the biblical texts, at least what's gotten to us. And of course, if you read the Gospel of Thomas and these other apocryphal books that were found with the Dead Sea Scrolls and so on and so forth, you get a lot deeper perspective, and you get perspective on what spiritual teachers have been talking about. They make the biblical scriptures, what they've allowed to come through and filter through, unfortunately, is very superficial. But the deeper spiritual texts are being discovered from these ancient documents that have been suppressed and been hidden from us, and so on and so forth. And it talks about this. It talks about going within. But even the scriptures that have come to us and been allowed to come to us have very deep metaphysical meanings. The sermons of Jesus have very deep metaphysical concepts, as does the saying that seek ye first the kingdom of heaven as righteousness, and all else will be added unto you. What I say is seek first the unseen, be the unseen, and then from there you have great leverage. Because did you know, where does everything come from? Think about this. Contemplate it. Can there be anything that is different from everything? Well, the only thing that could be different from everything is no thing. Nothing. What does that mean? That means no thing drives everything. That means no time drives all time, because time itself is simply a structure that we've invented of measurement. And in order for there to be measurement, there has to be space. So time has to be within space. What does that mean? Well, What is outside of time? No time. Therefore, time exists within a substratum, so to speak, of no time. What does that mean? Well, if you want to get leverage, if you want to be able to impact something in a massive way, you have to go outside of that thing. And this goes into science and engineering. It's very interesting. It goes into business, in fact. The great Jay Abraham, who's a great marketing coach, that I've studied a lot of his work, and I've applied a lot of his work to great results. He says that in any business that you're in, or any discipline that you're in order to get an edge on the quote-unquote competition, of course we know there's no competition, but for the sake of the game, you have to actually go outside that discipline and import principles from the outside. Well, ultimately, to gain leverage over time and space, you have to go outside of time and space. That's going quantum. And the great Joe Dispenza talks about this, and he gives great modalities of meditation and so on and so forth to help you get out of that. Little secret for you. You don't even have to meditate. Because think about it. Does God have to meditate? Of course, it's very joyful to meditate, and I do that, and so on and so forth, but you can know in an instant who you are. You don't have to meditate. You don't have to change behavior. You don't have to change habits. You don't have to make yourself believe. You don't have to affirm it. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to discipline yourself even though we talk about that in this channel. You don't have to journal. We talk about it in this channel. We recommend that you do it, mostly for the enjoyment of the process. But the only thing you have to do is know, ladies and gentlemen. You have to be. You have to know that you are it and be it, and that's the ultimate leverage. Why? Because you're outside of time. And if you go into your imagination, you'll realize this, because you can right now put yourself into any time. Just imagine. I want you to imagine yourself in ancient Rome in the time of Cicero. You can do it right now. Of course, you might have to do it more to believe it, and so on and so forth, but you can do it. I want you to imagine yourself in your mother's living room right now. You can transport yourself there immediately, and I ask you, is there any difference between your being there in your imagination or being there now, beside a thought? If you can suspend that thought, you will truly believe and feel yourself there. And that is the ultimate leverage, ladies and gentlemen. So I hope I've just given you some proofs. I hope I've increased your faith a little bit, and your confidence, and your trust in these modalities, because we're getting back on that path of getting more specific. And what I want you to be able to do is I want you to be able to leverage these modalities of the unseen in order to show yourself that everything on the scene will be accomplished for you, and that everything's just a game, and it can be fun, and your consciousness alone, ladies and gentlemen, is the arbiter. Because there's no difference between my consciousness and your consciousness. There's only consciousness. Therefore, if you're watching this, if you're consciousness, you are the consciousness. And everything is happening within your consciousness. But if there's only one thing, nothing apart from your consciousness can truly have existence. Therefore, everything that's happening is your consciousness. Therefore, it's very easy for you to have leverage over anything that's happening. You are it. So, I want you to remember that. Take that into the weekend, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to be releasing a lot of interesting videos this weekend. I'm going to be probably at Starbucks tomorrow doing some business. We will make some videos, and we're going to be getting more into some of these modalities, some of these dynamics of rapid lifestyle transformation. So thanks for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, I am doing coaching calls. I will put my email in the description. I will take you hand by hand and lead you through this methodology, this modality, so that you can be very confident and very trusting in the process in a very short period of time. So, until very soon, ladies and gentlemen, until tomorrow, this is Javier with much love and appreciation. We'll see you tomorrow.